Hello everyone. For our presentation today, we are going to be discussing how the film Casablanca translates and changes elements of detective fiction into noir film.
Casablanca debuted in 1942 during World War II, and it represents the wartime struggles of a group of people stuck in Morocco who are awaiting visas to America seeking asylum from the Nazis.
The movie follows Rick, a cold-hearted cafe owner with a checkered past.
His plans of lying low while secretly helping people get out of Casablanca are turned upside down when an old flame, Ilsa, re-enters his life.
We investigated 8 different elements of detective fiction to see how they translated to and differed from noir film.
Here they are.
Number 1, the threat of a foreign enemy.
Number 2, the femme fatale versus the domestic woman.
Number 3, the characteristics of a cold-hearted detective.
Number 4, similarities between detective fiction plot devices in noir films. Number 5, specific angles and asymmetry in noir films.
Number 6, shadows and lighting.
Number 7, a bleak or sad ending.
Number 8, themes of ambiguity and corruption.
A common element in noir films is the use of a foreign enemy. This relates to hard-boiled detective fiction because we consistently see a setting in America which is affected by the looming fear of communism and the foreign enemy. Casablanca is a prime example of this, as the German and French enemies during World War II serve as the main antagonists for the film. The intensity of Cold War politics shaped the story. We see examples of this as the Germans investigate several murders, make multiple arrests, and there is talk of buying and selling humans on the black market. Also, Victor is being targeted by the Germans, making it unsafe for him to stay in Casablanca, and he becomes desperate for a letter of transit. Victor has previously been held in concentration camps, and the Germans pressure him to give up the names of people involved in the underground movement. Other desperate characters, such as Anina and her husband Leon from Bulgaria, are trying to make enough money to escape to America. Even Rick is threatened to be arrested by the Germans at the end of the movie for assisting Victor and Ilsa escape.
So one of the main elements of hard-boiled detective fiction is the use of the female character, whether it be the use of the femme fatale as kind of the anti-hero or the domestic woman as kind of the wifely cheerleader to the main protagonist or detective. And the same is true for noir film.
How did you get in?
Stairs from the street.
I told you this morning you'd come around, but this is a little ahead of schedule. Well, won't you sit down?
Richard, I had to see you.
There's Richard again. We're back in Paris.
Please.
So the femme fatale is usually seductive, tempting, intelligent, and she's kind of the unattainable thing that the protagonist wants but can't have, and she basically just kind of serves as a distraction or kind of an obstacle in the protagonist's way. And the domestic woman is a more dated and refined take on a woman's role in the world and in the movie. She's usually really sweet, maybe she's a receptionist, something like that. So Casablanca's main female lead is Ilsa, and while both hard-boiled detective fiction and noir films typically do have a femme fatale of some sorts, Ilsa really isn't. She's definitely more of the domestic woman because she's very loving, she's nice, she's not really trying to seduce anyone on purpose. Most of the manipulative stuff that we see does happen on accident. Now, even though she does pull a gun on Rick.
All right. I tried to reason with you. I tried everything. Now I want those letters. Get them for me.
I don't have to. I got them right here.
Put them on the table.
No.
For the last time, put them on the table.
In an attempt to kind of emotionally manipulate him in order to come with her and in order to force him to give her the transit papers, she's still at the end of the day doing this out of love because she wants him to come with her. And even though she's kind of caught in between these two men, she never really does anything to antagonize them, nor does she intentionally hinder their plans. She just kind of wants the best for all of them.
A common feature in noir film is the detective's personality. Most of the time, they come off cold and impersonal to most of the characters involved in the
Say, but
plot.
we've still lots of things to do.
I throw up the money, Monsieur Blaine.
Keep it, you'll need it in America.
But we made a deal.
Now, never mind that. You won't have any trouble in Lisbon, will you?
No, it's all arranged.
Good, I've got the letters right here, all made out in blank. All you have to do is fill in the signatures.
Victor Laszlo? Victor Laszlo, you're under arrest. On a charge of accessory to the murder of the couriers from whom these letters were stolen. Oh, you're surprised about my friend Ricky. The explanation is quite simple. Love, it seems, has triumphed over virtue.
Not so fast, Louis. Nobody's going to be arrested, not for a while yet.
You've taken leave of your senses.
I have. Sit down over there.
Put that gun down.
Louis, I wouldn't like to shoot you, but I will if you take one more step.
For example, in Casablanca, Rick has what seems like no personal ties. This is most likely because of the heartbreak he endures when Ilsa abandons him, causing him to appear aloof and alone. This is an important element because it allows the detective to be more drastic and in the end allows them to show that they genuinely do care after all. Rick ends up being selfless and helped Ilsa and Victor escape instead of going with Ilsa
Put it
himself.
on the plane.
Yes, sir.
This way.
If you don't mind, you fill in the names. That'll make it even more official.
You think of everything, don't you?
And the names are Mr. and Mrs. Victor Laszlo.
But why my name, Richard?
Because you're getting on that plane.
I don't understand. What about you?
I'm staying here with him till the plane gets safely away.
No, Richard, no. What has happened to you last night?
Last night we said a great many things. You said I was to do the thinking for both of us. Well, I've done a lot of it since then. It all adds up to one thing. You're getting on that plane with Victor where you belong.
But Richard, no,
Now, you've got to listen to me. You have any idea what you'd have to look forward to if you stayed here? 9 chances out of 10, we'd both wind up at a concentration camp. Isn't that true, Louis?
I'm afraid Major Strasser would insist.
You're saying this only to make me go.
I'm saying it because it's true.
This element of a cold character is seen in both novel and film, and movies have not changed the iconic detective facade.
Another key element is the similarities between detective fiction plot devices in noir films. Detective fiction and noir films have many different aspects in common. They both use dramatic music during important scenes in order to draw in the audience and enhance the drama. For example, when Ilsa pointed the gun at Rick toward the end of the movie, the music changed to add a more intense effect to the dramatic scene. In Casablanca specifically, murder is involved in the story, just like in any detective fiction story. However, noir films aren't all mystery. They also include slight comedy as well as love and affairs, like the relationship between Rick and Ilsa. Another element is specific angles and asymmetry in noir films. In detective fiction, different scenes will be shot from different angles in order to add more of a dramatic effect. In noir films, this strategy is also used. Changing up the angle of the camera caused the audience to hone in on what is happening in that specific scene. Zooming is also used to bring more attention to a specific person or object, or to grab the attention of the audience during a specific scene right before something important is about to come to light. On top of that, lighting and shadows are used to draw or take attention away from certain elements of the scene.
So an important element of noir that for obvious reasons can't really be shown in a detective fiction novel is the use of lighting and shadows to convey specific subtleties with people's emotions in the movie as well as subtle themes. So filmmakers of noir often use iconic silhouettes or will hide one side of a character's face in shadow while the other one is in light. And that kind of is used to demonstrate maybe a character's inner turmoil, kind of conflicting ideas inside of them and such.
I'll be leaving Casablanca soon and we'll never see each other again. We knew very little about each other when we were in love in Paris. If we leave it that way, maybe we'll remember those days, not Casablanca.
So one of the most common uses of shadow and lighting is, as I mentioned earlier, the use of hiding one character's face in shadow while the other half of it is kind of bathed in light. And we see that a lot with Rick as he kind of grapples with, is he a good person if he saves these people? Should he play it safe and just stick to running his cafe? Obviously, Ilsa has re-entered the picture, but she has a fiance, so then he's kind of dealing with inner conflicts with that, with where he stands with her. So it is often seen in Casablanca when Rick is having private conversations with people, or it's only him and one other person, he is always the one that is just bathed in shadow while the other person is bathed in light. And it doesn't really matter what they were talking about. With Ilsa, with Laszlo, with Captain Renault, Rick was always the one in the shadows.
Not last night.
Did you run out on me because you couldn't take it, because you knew what it would be like? Hiding from the police, running away all the time?
When a character is bathed in light, it usually symbolizes innocence, purity, and beauty, and with every single close-up that we see of Ilsa in the movie, she is always kind of bathed with a halo almost of light to show that even though she might have done some shady things, she is still doing what she thinks is best for the two men that she both happens to love. Some other times in which we see the director strategically using shadows and lighting is after Rick sees Ilsa for the first time since their fling in Paris. It cuts to a scene where Rick is sitting in a bar, kind of drinking away his sorrows. And I think that is the darkest scene in the movie, actually, because there isn't really any light at all. And in not having light, noir can still speak volumes by talking about subtle themes such as loss, depression, and grief. And this kind of scene with him alone in the bar marks a sharp contrast to the flashback of him and Ilsa that we see in Paris a few minutes after. And that flashback happens to be the scene in the movie where the most light is used to display feelings of better times and happiness and innocence. Those two scenes together, the darkest one and the lightest one, kind of serve an important purpose, but only when you look at how the shadows and the lights kind of affect it.
Another common feature of detective fiction and noir films is a bleak or sad ending. There are typically people murdered, and at the end of the novel, this typically entails the reveal of a murderer. Although it is satisfying for the reader to know who done it, the fact of the matter is that someone remains dead. The characters tend to be living in a bleak or sad world, meaning that even after the murderer is solved, the world remains crime-ridden. This prevails in Casablanca as we see the love triangle between Ilsa, Rick, and Victor play out at the end of the film. In a way, Ilsa plays both men's feelings throughout the story. She is dedicated to saving her current love, Victor, but also reminisces on her past love with Rick. She desperately convinces Rick that she still loves him in order to get letters of transit for her and Victor. She tells Rick that she wants to leave Casablanca with him. However, at the end of the film, Rick displays self-sacrifice by insisting that Ilsa leave Casablanca with Victor. He also got them both letters of transit for America. Although this leaves Rick sad and lonely, he allows Ilsa and Victor to escape to safety. This leaves the film with a sad and bleak ending because the audience feels multiple emotions.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Are you ready, Ilsa?
Yes, I'm ready. Bye, Rick. God bless you.
Gotta hurry, you'll miss that plane.
The last things we want to talk about is the theme of corruption and ambivalence in noir film. So Captain Renault, for most of the movie, is aligned with the Third Reich, and he's the best example of corrupt officials being present in noir films similar to detective fiction novels. Not only does he call himself a corrupt official in a joking manner,
20,000 francs says it isn't.
Is that a serious offer?
I just paid out 20. I'd like to get it back.
Make it 10. I'm only a poor corrupt official.
Okay, done.
he is also seen closing Rick's cafe on account of illegal gambling, while he himself also partakes in
Advise
gambling.
that this place be shut up at once.
But everybody's having such a good time.
Yes, much too good a time. The place is to be closed.
But I've no excuse to close it.
Find one.
Everybody is to leave here immediately. This cafe is closed until further notice. Clear the room at once.
How can he close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Everybody out at once.
Though these are more lighthearted nods to the theme of corrupt power present in noir and detective fiction, it still shows that noir pays homage to the detective fiction style of corrupt power.